Hey everybody, what's up? Don Carr here with Rikk of Toontrack, and we're going to discover just how easy EZdrummer is.
EZdrummer is actually really easy. So Don has been incredibly kind, and he's provided us with a basic guitar track. So this is a very similar situation to something you might find yourself in, where you've laid down a guitar track, maybe you have some ideas for some drums, but you're not sure whether you can program them or not.
Right.
Now Don, you wouldn't know it from looking at him, is the most amazing drum programmer on the planet. Like if this is the planet, he's this around the planet of amazing, right? But he still uses EZdrummer too because it's going to make a really complicated process a little bit easier. So let's start with the basics. Don's in Pro Tools, and what we've got here, I'm going to move this a little bit, is you can see that he's recorded a guitar track. We're going to play that for you just so you can kind of get a feel for some basic stuff. Great sounding, which we knew it would be. Okay, so what you see though in Pro Tools is that Don, in writing his song, has sort of sketched out these components of the song. So like a verse, a pre-chorus, an intro, stuff like that. I'm gonna actually shrink this up a little bit so you can see it all. Watch this, the big reveal. Boom!
Ta-da!
So you've got the verse, the pre-chorus, a chorus, and sort of a turnaround. This is, again, very common songwriting structure. So what we've done is Don's created an instrument track in Pro Tools right underneath his audio track of stuff that he's recorded, and he's instantiated an instance, which is alliteration, and it's awesome, of EZdrummer 2. And what he did was this. So if you're not super familiar with EZdrummer 2, unfortunately, this isn't really the tutorial to teach you everything. We want to show you one really unique aspect that really helps your songwriting and production process. There's a bunch of other videos, including some stuff that Mitch has done here from Sweetwater to help you through learning more about the program as a whole. Right now, we're focusing on Don's favorite component, as he relayed to me earlier, which is edit play style. So check this out. He's gone into EZdrummer and he's looked for a MIDI groove that he likes, that will actually complement the song. He settled on this groove here. Pretty basic groove. Now he took that groove and he dragged it down to the song creation tool, right down here at the bottom. And in that timeline, it allows you to manipulate and work with your MIDI in ways that you might want to do prior to committing that MIDI to a track in your DAW. So you can do all your work and fine-tuning in EZdrummer 2, and then once you have the groove the way you want it, you can simply take it and drag it over to your DAW and deal with it in a MIDI context any way you'd like to. That'll make more sense in a minute. But we know that he's got a bunch of different parts. So what he's done is he's dragged the actual MIDI down the way he wants, where we want to. So let's take this over here. We were here. Yeah. So we've got this groove. Pretty simple. But what we want to do is we want to imitate the way a drummer might approach that groove. And I think if you've played with drummers or worked with drummers, everybody understands that the concept of a song rhythmically is normally one groove that you just sort of do variations of because it's fairly consistent then for the listener. So you can do that with EZdrummer 2. You can actually treat this one MIDI file like all the MIDI files you'll need to complete the song in a way that's really, really incredibly realistic, if I, the guy from Toontrack, do say so myself. So let's do this. Let's drag this groove down a couple times. And again, you'll notice it's changing colors because what we have in EZdrummer 2 is a color coding system to help you kind of keep your mind where you're at. And you can do all sorts of things. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, a lot of the same things that you do, but it's set up to basically mimic a song track in a DAW. So I said we want to go down there 5 times, right? I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, 5 times.
5 times, yes. You've got 5 different parts. Now, you'll notice that these are all separate and different grooves. So we come back here to the beginning of the song, right? Simple. That works. But if all that happens is this, we're going to get bored. So you say, how do we fix that? Well, this is what we would do. Let's take an example. So let's go to the verse part.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to the verse part, shall we? You'll see that I'm where the marker is, which is fine. Now, you hear the guitar part changes, but the groove is still the same. And that can be a little monotonous. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click on the groove, and it's going to open a function in EZdrummer 2 called Edit Play Style. And this is really cool because it's a 3D representation of what's going on in your MIDI. And it allows you to change the components of the MIDI that you need to accommodate what you're trying to accomplish with your song. So we heard the guitar sort of drop out. It's a little more sparse. You've got just some beautiful chords. And we probably want the drums to follow that. So there's a couple of controls you can work with. Number one, you'll notice that there are certain elements in the drum kit visual that are highlighted, right? These are all things that are actually present in your groove. So you got a kick, a snare, a hi-hat, and a cymbal. And if you play that, you can kind of follow along and see where it is. Well, right now, it's doing the same thing. We want to make it less. We like the cymbal crash at the beginning, so we're going to leave that opening hit there. You'll notice as you look at the screen, you have a function for the opening hit, and you can actually move that even to things that aren't in the original groove, and they become sort of highlighted and now are part of your groove.
Nice.
So if you wanted the opening hit to actually be a ride, you could change it to that very simply. So we go back. Right? It was really subtle because it's not mixed. I like the crash better, so we're going to keep the crash there on the opening hit. And what I want to do is work with the kick drum. So I'm going to highlight the kick drum. The kick drum will now have an orange ring around it. You can see when it's highlighted. And what I want to do is play with the kick drum performance. So I'm going to use that, and at a place I'm going to use what we call the amount knob. Listen to how I can back the kick drum down from the original pattern. No kick drum. What just happened? Well, I'll tell you really quickly. The easy answer is science, and let's face it, if we're watching this video, none of us understand the science of how this happened, even the dude that works for the company. But what I can tell you in the cool terms is very simple this. Let me close out of here. When you look at the MIDI that Don has loaded, he has a number of EZX expansion packs, and they all have their own MIDI. They create a database inside of EZdrummer 2. And what this is a collection of the way drummers play. So when you're actually in Edit Play Style, and you're using the amount knob, this program, Edit Play Style, is firing off this algorithm that's looking at the groove that you're using or modifying, and it's trying to make decisions based on the musicality of similar grooves. It sounds really, really complicated, but it's not. The more drummers it has access to, the smarter it becomes. It knows what you're doing. It's totally going to take over one day, but right now, it's just good for making music. So for instance, he has enough MIDI loaded in the program to it knows where if you keep backing it off, the next logical musical progression that it's finding in other MIDI is, well, they would just play the snare and the hats without the kick drum. So you can hear again when we play, we come back to where we were in the verse. Right? Maybe we still want a kick drum. We can click the increase button and have one kick drum. And it's coming in every so often, right? Now, the other thing we can do, which is kind of cool, is, for instance, you see this moniker, the power hand. That's to emulate the drummer's lead hand, right? Or we would call it their lead hand, but if you're a right-handed drummer, it's your right hand, it's your hi-hat hand. It's normally what you would lead to do your fills or your cymbal work. If you're a left-handed drummer, same thing, other way. And you can take that power hand, just like you could the opening hit, and you can apply it to any instrument. So we could have just those snare drum hits with some ride cymbal. Simple enough. Again, there was no programming. You didn't have to go in and connect dots. You can think very musically. It's almost like talking to your drummer and saying, do this here.
Exactly. Switch to the ride cymbal for this section. Yeah.
And you just simply drag it over. And again, once you're there, you can also change the articulations. Right now, we're playing the bow of the cymbal, but we could have them play the bell. And that's going to change things as well. It's subtle, but it's the subtlety that makes it seem like it's really happening.
Exactly.
And this is the only program that exists in the world where you can do this sort of real-time adjustment to your MIDI. And what will happen is if you notice in the song track, as I'm adjusting the MIDI, I'm going to move this. Watch what happens down here. It's keeping up with you in real time and rewriting everything. It's doing all of the editing, all of the monotonous programming that everybody hates with MIDI. It's doing it all for you behind the scenes. Now, what's really cool is not only can you do that, change articulations and change performance, but like I had alluded to earlier, if we highlight the kick drum again, we can also start to include things that aren't in the actual groove itself originally. So check this out. So maybe we want this tom. Highlight it, and then increase some of the amount. We just added a completely realistic tom performance, and it's searching through. Everything's musical. Nothing happens arbitrarily, and if you pay attention, if you're paying attention to the actual groove, you'll notice the majority of the things that are happening, unless we get really crazy with the knob, are also things that can realistically be played. You're not hearing notes overlap like that could never happen or a drummer could never do that. It's all based on real performance, which I think is really crucial as well.
Again, it also creates like the feel, like just basically what you're saying, it's like the same pattern with a different flavor to it.
Absolutely. And then we can go into the pre-chorus. Again, we can come over here now and again. So the pre-chorus is going to have a different guitar part. So I know in the pre-chorus what I think is I'd like a build where he's got the floor tom, and we can maybe there's an extra fill that happens there where you get a little That's a little too busy. But the point is we have so many things we can do that, I mean, and it's funny because we can continue to go through parts where we think you get the gist of it, but let's go all the way to the end and let's create a scenario where we totally want to fire this drummer for what he's about to do in the end. Like, let's take this beautiful song and just crap all over it with horrible drums and bad decision making musically. You can do that with EZdrummer 2. Check this out.
The busiest drum part ever.
For no apparent reason whatsoever other than to annoy the guitar player. If you're a drummer and you're watching this right now, you need EZdrummer 2 just so when your guitar player gives you demos, you can do what I'm about to do to him and try and sell it seriously like you think this should be the groove.
Drummer's revenge.
Yeah, so here we go. All right, so let's start with the kick drum. That's way too few kick drums. Yeah, we need that.
Now we're talking.
And then I think we need all the cymbals. Yeah, why not? What I'm not hearing is enough this time. Oh, but wait. You think it's over? No, I'm gonna go back. Yeah. What do you think? It's pretty awesome, right? It's the way to end the song. No, the point is if you do that, I will laugh. But you can do whatever you want to do. And Don could have done this the reverse. Instead of laying the guitar part down, he could have picked one MIDI groove that he really enjoyed and modified it to the beat he had in his head by simply turning the amount knob. And in no time, again, all kidding aside, if we had really sat down and weren't being filmed and didn't have to pretend like we were interacting with one another like we're long lost friends, he could have literally had this done in like 15 minutes. And that's sort of the beauty of EZdrummer 2. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about being able to take something very simple and shape it in a way that is really, really unique to what you want it to do.
Yeah, creative and intuitive, really.
Yeah, and again, this is just one of the many, many functions and sort of beautiful tools that are available in EZdrummer 2. This wasn't meant to be a really in-depth tutorial, but you can see just from a few mouse clicks and some time on your laptop or in your DAW, you can take a basic guitar track, demo, or recording and turn it into something you can share with the band, something you can come back to and work on later, or even a full polished production if you were going to use the mixer and the export functions and everything else, which I think is pretty awesome. I think it really lives up to that title, EZdrummer.
Yeah,
at least
absolutely.
for me.
Yeah, because it's easy from the beginning, and like you say, you can make it as complicated as you want and as in-depth as you want, but the point is it's easy to start with.
Yeah, and again, who doesn't like that? So if you have any other questions, concerns, or comments, this video's over, so they're not really our concern, questions or comments, but what you should do is you should get on the phone and talk to your Sweetwater sales engineer because they know everything there is to know about Toontrack. They have actually probably forgotten more about Toontrack products in the time it took us to do this video than most other people know. So please reach out to them and tell them what you need to know, and they'll make sure that you get all the information necessary.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it, man.
Have a great day.